And I want to ask you, how can we start a prayer movement? How did you start there?
Yep.
Okay. Would you do something different today?
It's a good question. So if I was a leader in my church, if I was a pastor, or if I had a small group together, what I would do is I would go find worship leaders.
Okay.
And so that was my first thing, is I found some worship leaders who, I shared with them what we're doing and just worship and prayer, and I just shared it with them. And so I gathered worship leaders, not who were talented, but who had a desire to minister to God.
Okay.
And so we just began there. I'm super grateful to Laura Sogalis. Laura. She came right before she the Lord, she didn't have much of a platform when she came to us, and she just had tenderness in her heart. It was beautiful. And so she helped us for 2 years, but there were several like her. And so I gathered them, and then I gathered singers, and we began. And so we started with a small internship, and from there we got some students who wanted to stay in the prayer room with us and become missionaries. And so that's how we kind of got going.
Okay.
And
worship leaders first,
because you want skilled people who can minister to the Lord, because that's what I want to build a praying culture based on worship. And so that's why for me it was important to get worship leaders.
Yeah, that's funny, because when we think about the prayer room, we start looking for people who will pray.
Right, 100%.
Right? More like intercession.
Yes, 100%.
Then we think about the musicians and the singers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
That's interesting. Okay, what frequency did you start it? Like, how often were the prayer room? Every day?
We were every day. We started out with 2 hours a day, 4 hours a day, and we just began to increase as people started to gather with us.
So you started every day, 2 hours a day?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, God's measurement, and we don't even know how God measures things half the time. So what is enough prayer? What's too much prayer? That whole thing, And so I think God has an amazing calculator, that if you have a church of 100, then what does it work for you to pray as 100 people? So maybe it's 1 prayer meeting a week. Maybe it's 3 prayer meetings a week. So I never felt the pressure to go 24/7 in Brazil. I actually didn't have I didn't feel like the Lord even called us to that. So what is enough? And so that's, to me, I want to have hungry people for the presence of God and for the power of God. And so I want to go with the people around me. And so, because 100 people, they can also pray 5 times a week, and you can just, whatever works. So, but go for quality of prayer over quantity.
Okay.
Get people enjoying. Yes, there's discipline. You got to stay focused. I don't want to go, but I'm going to show up. And oh my gosh, it was amazing. So, but go for quality. Go for the people in the presence of God who are loving and worshiping, and then also praying. And so I would only go for frequency. I would go for quality and hungry people.
Okay. And how do we start this? Because we're talking about a prayer room, right?
Yes.
Let's say that is external.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing something. But how do we start this culture of praying?
Yeah.
Not just in the prayer room, but this culture of praying. Did you preach a lot about this in the church for them?
I did preach on it. So worshiping, ministering to the Lord, a life of prayer, a life of communion. I taught a lot on it. And a lot's relative, of course, but I taught on it to really get the foundation into the hearts of the people, into the hearts of those that had gathered with us. Because, I needed teaching to figure things out. And so that teaching's important. And then there's a couple books that I think, Reese Howells, The Intercessor. You ever read that book?
No.
Reese Howells was during an intercessor in World War II. It's got a powerful book. And then actually Corey Russell, his book's translated in Portuguese. There's just some good things to just help you encourage your thinking, what it means to pray and enter into prayer. So there's some good stuff on that as well.
How can we transition from because most churches in Brazil have the intercessors.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they have this group of people
Yeah.
who get together to pray about stuff.
Yeah.
But they are like the specialists, in that area.
Yes.
So how do you transition from that to a church that prays?
That's a great, it's a very intelligent observation. Because sometimes intercessors who have that title or position, they don't always respect the place of worship. And then worship leaders don't respect the pace of prayer.
Oh, okay.
So you want mutual respect and understanding there. Because, and that's where I grabbed young people who didn't so much have a formed opinion yet. I grabbed young people. Right? Because introducing new thoughts to them, they can grab it better. Young people as 20-year-olds and stuff like that. So that's where, and I think absolutely God respects and honors the intercessors in Brazil today. So I don't have that, but it's just doing something new where you bring together. It's often a challenge, and you want to bring people together of mutual respect for each other.
Okay. Yeah, because I feel like if I am a church member, and I have this problem, I can just call an intercessor and say, "Oh, can you pray for me in this area?"
Yes.
So sometimes I think they don't feel like their prayer has power.
Yes.
That person's prayer has more power than my prayer.
Right.
Yeah. So my question is this: like, how can we have like this church that prays?
A fundamental teaching to me is, it blew my mind when I was beginning to learn, but I cried out to God and He heard me.
Okay.
You have to have confidence that when you pray, He hears you.
Okay.
So that's got to be laid into the heart of every believer. Every believer. When I lift my voice in a small whisper, it thunders in heaven. We have to believe that. So that's where I'm thinking just some small teaching, some small ideas. And then to me, Sermon on the Mount, when Jesus talks about prayer, those, He talks about generosity, prayer, and fasting. Those three things, they're at the heart of the message. And so it's not a suggestion. That was not a suggestion. This is not for the spiritual elite, the ones who really are anointed. This is for every believer. And so I believe that every person listening is invited, it's profound, into the most holy place in all of creation. And when you look up, He listens. If you believe that, it will change how you even walk your life out. That you feel insignificant, but in the presence of God, your voice is the loudest.
Wow.
If I believed that, I would do it. So that's,
because like I can't talk to the president.
100%.
But I can talk to God.
No, where real decisions are made.
Yeah.
It's so true.
That's awesome. Very good.